It's probably Thursday, September 17th, 2015. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. I might be in Singapore or Australia or something, but we recorded a bunch of shows ahead of time, and tonight we're talking about, on the GeekNights Book Club, the first book of The Wheel of Time.
It is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan.
Fantasy book, the novel, part 1.
Part 1.
Let's do this. But first, things of the day.
We can't do news recording a show in the past because who knows what's happened today. We don't know because we're in the past.
But it's the lounge, so we can talk about anything. Commentary, ideas.
Anyway, so my thing of the day is this guy longboarding down a really steep road, which isn't really that exciting, except for the fact that I think this is a world record speed of longboarding.
He's going way fast.
If not world record, it doesn't really freaking matter. He's going like 70 miles an hour with no helmet, on a longboard, with no brakes, down a road. Yeah, the road is smooth, but I mean, one rock in the road, and he could boom, bump, tumble, tree, dead. And that does not happen, which makes this video awesome. The coolest thing, I think, is like he's got the stance practiced for when he's going straight. It's like he's got this perfect balance going on, and he's also got these gauntlet kind of gloves on his hands. I think he has discs of metal or some kind of material so that when he has to make a sharp turn, he can lean and actually put his hand on the ground and to stabilize himself without, if he had a glove on, that wouldn't even suffice, right? He needs this he's going so
like
fast.
Even like hockey gloves, you just wear right through them.
Sure. So there you go.
So this is a video that is about 10 minutes worth of just footage, some natural, some staged or recreated, just because, old-timey equipment, of the New York City subway in 1949.
They shot this with film cameras, like black and white film spinning through a loop, right?
What's amazing is that the only things that are different between then and today, 2015, are, one, the accents, two, the conductors.
You can still hear those accents in some parts of the city.
Not quite as New York as this. They're kind of surprising. The doors are deadly.
Yeah, they should be more deadly.
Yep, and there's tokens.
Tokens. You never saw the tokens.
No, I never used the
token.
token.
You ever used the token to go through a toll?
No.
Yeah.
On the Garden State Park where I'd throw change into the buckets.
No, the token. You would go to what you would do is you would either, if you went through like the toll every day because you were commuting, you would buy and have them mail you the tokens like in rolls. Like you would get quarters in a roll, you get tokens in a roll, and you'd pay like a fee monthly or whatever. Or you would drive up to the toll booth and you would buy tokens. And then if you buy like a roll of tokens for like $20 or whatever, and then every time you got to a toll, you throw in one token into the thing. And then it would just, you go through the toll.
Yep. But the amazing thing isn't just that this video is, cool. But if you click on this video, you're going to get a bunch of recommended videos on YouTube. And it is pretty much nothing but similar amazing footage of old and new subway stuff. And I've been doing a lot of subway stuff recently because New York actually, just recently, for the first time in pretty much all modern history, actually expanded the subway system and added a new stop.
Whoa. Can you go there yet?
We can go on in a few days. We can ride there.
Yeah, I saw the map in the subway car had already updated with the stop. I didn't know if the train was going there yet because I was at Times Square and the 7 train is, still said last stop. So I'm like, I guess
I'm pretty sure. But in Grand Central, the sign says the name of Hudson Yards now.
Uh-oh.
It says the Hudson Yards bound 7.
Just in time to go to the New York Comic Con in a few weeks.
That I'm not going to go to.
Nope.
They didn't want my panel.
Oh, well.
Yep. New York Comic Con. A con so big and amazing that despite the fact that I can literally take the subway to it for free next to my house.
I would go if, a few years ago we went just to see, screenings of films and things that
we went to see, Makoto Shinkai.
Right. But they aren't having that now, so.
No.
As far as I know.
It's literally, it's the things I hate about cons. It's a giant expo hall, a place with no food to eat, and a huge line.
Maybe the Hudson Yard stop will create food to eat. Maybe we should open up a foodery near there, as the Bellas, perhaps.
You know what you need?
We can buy out some old auto shop that's over there.
Fuck that! You know what you need?
Build
You need to take the DeBella's formula and make the DeBella's truck. It's just a giant Winnebago, and you pull it up outside of events and do the DeBella's thing.
There is a submarine sandwich Italian.
Do they make like 10 subs a minute?
I don't know
maybe
how many
more.
they make, but sometimes they're near my work, and I haven't even bothered to go try them out.
Because way back when I worked at that stupid
They do not have
DeBelle's,
enough people in a line outside of them that if they made 10 subs a minute, they would have no people outside.
I mean, I could make an entire sub in about 30 seconds
All right,
if the
well,
customer
you
knew what
can
they
train
wanted.
everybody.
Yeah.
And I'll count the money.
We got to get the guy who trained me.
The master, the Pai of subs.
The book club book is, we're
He's
done
still your
now.
eyeball.
I got to pick a new book club book, which is tough because I'm pretty much,
Pick something that you're going to read in Singapore.
but I'm going to read the next Wheel of Time books.
Oops.
Maybe I'll just do book 2 of the Wheel of Time.
I already
We're
read
reading
that. Let's not do that.
Maybe I'll pick the next R. Scott Bakker book because there's a date now, supposedly.
All right, well, good. We're going to do this book club in 2025.
Yeah, we'll see when the date is. There's no
right.
pre-order yet on Amazon.
So Wheel of Time, I chose this book on the basis that the Wheel of Time is one of those ridiculously famous fantasy series, just like Lord of the Rings and the Games of Thrones.
yeah, it's one of those things where if you go to an anime con and you're like, Cowboy Bebop, what's that? And all the other people are like, what? You've never seen Cowboy Bebop?
There are like certain, there's like sci-fi series like, Foundation and what's another good one? The Culture series.
I was about to
right?
say
Yeah.
the Culture series.
They're
And
like,
even that's more recent.
In the fantasy sci-fi nerd section of the bookstore, there are certain book series that are just there. They're perennial. They're always, they're a thing. And being a nerd, I feel like I should, know at least some about all of these things because they're so important nerderies. But Wheel of Time, while it's had many RPGs made out of it and things of that nature, it hasn't had TV series or movies or anything like that to bring it into the greater pop culture. It's like, I think most people don't know what the hell this is at all. But nerds, you see those books and it's like, even if you haven't read it, you at least know that is one of the big fantasy novel series.
So I knew about them because, of all things, there was, when I was a kid, there was the Museum Replicas magazine where you could or catalog, where you could order swords. And I didn't have money, luckily, so I never bought any. But the best sword they had was called the Heron Blade.
Ooh.
And it talked about, this
not
is
not as good as the Heron Spear. What's up with herons and weapons in fantasy series?
I would suspect that the Heron Spear was perhaps inspired by the Heron Blade.
Oh, you think so?
I do think so.
Maybe.
The problem, the main reason I'm really kind of invested in these books now, The Wheel of Time, and why I think it was a good book club choice for you to pick, is that
You didn't think that when I picked it originally.
no, I didn't, because
At least you admit that.
I was not enthusiastic about reading however many million pages that book is.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I discovered these books because I spent a lot of time in the nerd section of the Borders and the Barnes and Nobles in my day, when I was younger before Amazon existed. Especially,
I'd see him.
and I'd see them, and I knew that they were a fantasy series called Wheel of Time, and that the books were ginormous. And that made me not want to read them. Like it makes me not want to read Ulysses.
It's like I saw those Piers Anthony books, and I was like, nope, just not opening those.
Yeah. I knew people who read them, and they would say things to me about them that weren't exactly, they didn't say that they were bad, but they wouldn't give a strong recommendation, such as, you must read these. Oh, my God, they're amazing.
I'm going to be real with you guys.
So because of that, I didn't ever bother to read them.
My friends I trust and listeners and fans that I trust, or at least seem intelligent and seem like worldly and well-read, basically said, yeah, they're pretty good. They're okay. Or they said they're pretty good. I really like them, and they have a lot of personal investment, but they wouldn't pretend they're the greatest fantasy books ever written.
But it turns out, there's a lot of people, nerds who have read them. People just don't discuss novels as much as they discuss other things. So, but once you start talking about it, it's like, oh, you start seeing who's read them, and suddenly people have a lot to say.
And so far, almost everyone's read them. So
a lot of people, not everybody, but
I
quite a few.
I bring them up in casual conversations. And
I remember
a lot of
in
people are
college,
like,
Alex and Greg read them.
Yeah.
Alex had the hardcovers. They were they were even scarier looking.
Well, it's like when we all read The Prince of Nothing, and basically our entire friend group would do nothing but talk about The Prince of Nothing for a couple years.
So the series goes on for many, many books, and then Robert Jordan sadly passed away some years ago, not too long ago, and then
but unlike
someone else finished the series. I forget his
unlike
name.
Ian M. Banks in The Culture, Robert Jordan basically had a protege, like a person who could finish the series in a way that would be satisfying and feel canonical.
Yeah, I haven't read that far, obviously, but I haven't heard anyone say that, oh, don't read those. They just sort of accept those as the real end of the series, even though there's two authors and they don't seem to have a problem with it.
Yep.
At least as far as I can tell. But we're only talking about book one today. So if you've listened to our, usually when we do regular Geek Nights episodes and we say the book club book is, we sort of make some small comments about what we read recently in that book. And, the two main things that we pointed out in those times were, number one, this is fantasy novel.
Like, maybe it's because I've read a lot of fantasy, but I've basically read 2 classes of fantasy. 3. I've read the classic, like Tolkien.
Yeah. Well, Tolkien is more the poetic kind, right? It's about, it's not just about the story. It's also about the flowery prose and, that sort of thing.
And the world building and the consistency, and there's a lot going on there.
Right.
I've read garbage.
Sure, I haven't read as much garbage.
But
I haven't read none, but I've read much less garbage than you.
I read basically every Forgotten Realms book from when I was in high school and earlier, except I never read the Drizzt Do'Urden books because they looked really bad even when I was a kid.
Yeah, the closest thing to garbage that I read was, which I don't think is garbage, actually, I kind of liked it, was Fred Saberhagen's series that was like the Books of Swords, and each book was about a different, ridiculously powerful, awesome sword that existed in this fantasy world. And I never finished that series, but I really liked it. I think I read 6 of the books.
I read one Dragonlance book, and it was so garbage that I never read another one. I started reading Piers Anthony, Dragon's Gold, Serpent's Silver, Chimera's
That
Copper.
sounds like garbage.
Yeah, that book is like 900 bajillion pages long, and it was so bad, I literally, more than halfway through, just said, you know what? No. And closed it and never opened it again.
So the other kind of fantasy novel is like, the Prince of Nothing kind.
Yeah,
where it's actually, real, quote, quote, real literature, right? I know it's a No True Scotsman, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, yeah,
but it happens to be in a setting that can be that puts it in a fantasy section of the bookstore. There might be people with magical powers. There's some sort of map in the book.
It may be based in some of those types of tropes.
It's a historical kind of, it's set in something that's like a historical Earth where, there's medieval or Roman or some Roman or medieval-like society.
Well, I guess here's the difference. Like Tolkien is, here is a fantasy world and a story. It isn't particular overarching allegory.
Yeah, there are swords and or sorcerers in the story.
Like
Hobbit of some kind.
The Hobbit is about the Hobbit.
Yes,
and the ring and all that stuff. The Prince of Nothing is about solipsism and philosophy.
Exactly. So
I'm used to like super gritty, deconstructive, dark, like horrible fantasy, and I'm used to garbage fantasy, and I'm used to Tolkien, and this is like straight fantasy.
This is literally like it's weird in a way in that it's like, wow, there's nothing this book is doing that is like different or like standing out in any way from what you expect fantasy to be. There's some sort of magic system that is, sort of mysterious and, how the world works, mystery. That's in every fantasy novel ever.
Yep.
There's a guy with an awesome sword who rises up from being like peasant up to ridiculously important, amazing, powerful character who changes history.
Yep. Bloods of ancient kings, like battles from distant past.
Map in the book. Yep. Multiple maps in the book. It's like every, single trope that is there, that is a stereotype of fantasy novels, is in this book. Everything plays out exactly as you expect. There's people coming from off the map that, ooh, what's going on over there, right? It's like every single trope is there.
Everyone.
Every single last fantasy trope is there, but they're all executed solidly.
I mean, look at our party, like the original party. We've got the bard, who is just straight up a bard.
Yep.
We've got the fighter paladin guy.
Yep.
We've got the wizard.
Yep.
Who is like a mega wizard. She's got
all the wizards are mega wizards.
She's got magic items and an artifact.
Sure.
We've got the kid with the magic sword, who's also a mage with destiny.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Dagger Kid, who's a thief.
And Wolf Kid.
Wolf Kid, who is a werewolf.
The blacksmith with an axe.
Who is also an axe wielder.
Yes. It's like someone made the D&D party, right? So this book doesn't have any, social allegories or anything like that. It doesn't have it has a little tiny bit of poetry, but not anywhere near Lord of the Rings level, right?
If you try to treat the poetry and the poetics of these books seriously,
that's not
they
a good
feel really
have
bad.
A good time. Yeah.
Like
if that's what you're looking for, look elsewhere, right? And if that bothers you, well, it's not enough of it in here to bother you.
Yeah. It's just like really...
It's just a fantasy story. It's
competently presented not expertly written, but very well and competently written. Nothing bothers me about the prose or the writing.
Yep.
It tells its story effectively. And what's really interesting to me is it reminds me actually a lot of Dumas in the sense that the pace of the writing and the pace of things happening is pretty much the steady, never-ending slog forward.
Yeah, it's like the rate of time passing as you read words doesn't seem to change very much at all. They don't time skip anything. It's not like, 3 months later. That doesn't happen.
It pretty much just skips sleeping and pooping.
Yeah, it skips between the different groups of people as parties split up and rejoin and converge and diverge constantly. But it's like, okay, here's what these people did this day. Here's what these people did this day. Here's what these people did this day. Next day, here's what these people did. And it describes, it goes into great detail about small things. Like they'll go into, say, a stable, and he'll take the time to like list all the horses that are in the stable and describe them, and
it reads the way D&D like Dungeon Master notes about the story go.
Right, every single inn, he takes care to mention the name of the inn, what logo is on the sign of the inn. You enter the common room. Every single inn that he enters, they describe who's in the common room, how big it is, who's the innkeeper. I've read like 20 different inns already.
Yep.
And like the names.
But they're all distinct, and you kind of, like we were talking about
they all matter. Right?
Like when the kids get to Bearlawn.
Who's performing in the inn, if anyone? What kind of people is it? A drunken inn? A partying inn?
They went to the bad
There'll
inn.
be like pages where they go around town looking at all the inns to pick one to sleep in.
But then they end up sleeping in the one with the innkeeper who tries to murder them and rob them.
Right. But that's how it goes.
Yeah. Except I noticed, I was flipping back through at the end of the last book, the one area where this actually fails is kind of a flaw in the books, is that when there are intense action scenes, sometimes they're written that same way. And a few times, like the last few battles in the first book, they're written so abstractly that you can't actually follow what happens.
I agree with that.
It's like,
100%.
and the flames from the sword and the clashing of the whatever, and it just sort of describes a bunch of verbs and nouns in a row, and then the battle's over.
It felt a lot like a Trigun manga battle scene.
It was the opposite of, and then they stepped into the circle inscribed by his sword.
Yes, exactly.
That's some Prince of Nothing right there.
Right.
But other than that, it kind of draws you in.
I think part of that's intentional too, right?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you the battle scenes in like the second book, very similar. You don't really figure out exactly what's going on. And sort of, I think they don't want you to know 100% exactly what's going on in a literal end of Evangelion kind of way.
Partly because then, like, fantasy combat doesn't really work because people get injured.
Yeah, if you made a movie, you could do cool action scenes, but that's not what this is about.
Yeah,
right?
the fights in the book.
It's like they sort of just describe it enough that they can lead you into the consequences of the battle happening, which is the important part.
You know what? It reads like a D&D combat encounter. Like, they were fighting, and he was fighting with him, and she was fighting with him, and then it was over, and this side won.
This guy got stabbed. He's wounded. That guy, disappeared. That one's dead. That sort of thing.
It's a very unsurprising and unchallenging book, which might just be because we're old and jaded and we've read a lot of books and seen a lot of things.
For being so big, I read this really fast.
And literally nothing comes as a surprise. Everything
no
is foreshadowed.
Surprises whatsoever.
Everything is foreshadowed adequately and obviously. Like There's
a Chekhov's gun, it fires. The Chekhov's gun, it fires. The Chekhov's gun, it holds on. Another Chekhov's gun comes out and fires, and the first Chekhov's gun fires.
And the ones that don't fire immediately in the next book.
They fire later.
And it does this start with a little mention.
Yeah, we're only talking about book 1, but let me tell you, book 2, the first chapter of book 2 could easily be, it's exactly the next chapter after the end of book 1. You can just stick all these books together, because I'm in book 3 now, I can tell you. It happened twice so far. You could just put the books side by side and cut them anywhere you like to separate the books, and it wouldn't really make a big difference. I think the only reason they chose like those spots to end one book and start another, because it's like after the culmination and denouement epilogue, after one of the more major battle conflict resolution parts. That's when they cut the book off and start the next one.
Yep.
And then it builds up, and then there's the next major battle with the big bad guy.
But you learn about the Aes Sedai, and then
Aes Sedai.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
don't know how to
Aes Sedai.
say it.
I'm pretty sure it's Aes Sedai.
I don't know how to pronounce anything, but in
Sedai?
my brain,
Aes Sedai?
my
Aes Sedai?
brain is always says Aes Sedai.
Took my brain a minute to read Egwene and not just say
Mine says Egwen in my brain.
it's Egwene, I think.
Who knows? How about Nineveh?
Nineveh.
At least Elaine is easy.
Yeah.
And
Rand, Altor.
It could be Rand.
It's Rand.
I'm pretty sure. I hope it's
It
Rand.
better be Rand. If it's Rand, I hope he dies. So
Ruby Rand.
in the first book, the one thing I
Ruby
can say,
Rand. Okay.
I can watch that movie again.
Sure.
I did not like any of those boys for 3/4 of that book.
Mm-hmm.
Rand was okay, but he was a little shingy. But Matt just
They're all kind of shingy. Rand is the most
no,
shingy, but
except
he has.
Matt wasn't that shingy. Matt was just stupid.
Yeah.
Like Matt was the dumb one. Matt almost got them killed so many times. I expected him to die. I expected him and Perrin to both be left behind.
I think part of the reason there is that way is because they want to show you them like how quickly they grew up, and they're constantly doing things like, wow, just like a year ago they were in.
Yeah.
They were in their peasants. They're being stupid.
And it does work because, like, in the second book, you start to read, or even the end of the first book, and they're like kind of competent adventurers. And then
they're
think
ridiculously competent in book 3.
like not many chapters back.
Like in book 3, they're powerful, leveled up dudes.
But like it
All of
mentions
them, everybody, every character.
But you learn about the Aes Sedai, and it mentions later, like, well, what if you met a whatever Aja, and then you learn about there's colors of Aja, and you start.
At first I thought the red Aja was like a person, and that some of the Aes Sedai followed the red Aja, but it's like no, they're just in a group called the red Aja.
That is a trope of fantasy books. Use a proper noun in context without explanation.
Yep.
Then later, use it in context again to clarify what type of thing it is.
Mm-hmm.
Then later, reveal one of them. It's like later you learn like what one of them is, but there's still a lot of mysteries. The second, that's at the end of the first book. There's no more explanation for that. Immediately in the second book, it's like it goes through this whole build up, and then it just tells you what color a bunch of the characters are wearing, and then you're like, oh,
I get it. Yeah. Another trope this book has is a thing will happen, right? And you, the reader, will learn an important piece of information, and so will some character, right? Will learn that same information. And then, for many chapters, you see what happens as that information does or does not spread to other characters.
Yeah, which is actually cool, because you very rarely see that in books.
And then another thing happens or another thing is learned. So it's like all that time, all those pages are really taken up by other characters learning after you've learned something and the effects of that. And then that somehow, sort of dragging everyone into the next happening, which creates more learning and more information coming out. And then process repeats itself over and over. Like at one point, there were like, I think like the beginning of book 3 is like all the chapters are like everyone learning what happened at the end of book 2.
Nah.
And even now, the chapter I just read, it was a character was introduced somewhere in the middle of book 3, and they just learned what happened at the end of book 2. And it's like, oops, someone slipped.
Now, that would be really annoying, except it kind of works because, like you pointed out, it doesn't retell the story like a lot of bad authors would do.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it just focuses on the reaction and the consequences of that person learning that thing.
Yep.
But at the same time, because if we're talking about the first book here, fucking Rand and Matt and Perrin would all independently learn really important stuff and not tell anyone.
In book 1, there's a lot more not telling.
Well, because Matt, all
the
three of them have those
telling,
dreams.
The not telling enables the slower spreading of the information and the consequences of the people learning
you
it too
little
late.
shits, you know that this, like, the dark Satan of your world is after you, and the
he's
wizard
is in your dream, and this wizard is protecting you.
And the wizard
Why
is
don't you
protecting
tell
you
the wizard about it?
The wizard is protecting you specifically said repeatedly, if you have any weird dreams, tell me it's important.
They don't trust her either.
But then they won't. Then they tell the bard, and the bard's
They
like,
trust
yeah.
the bard.
No, they don't. Only later because they're forced to because
They
he
trust the
eavesdrops
bard
on him.
way more than the wizard.
Well, toward the end. Pretty sure he's not dead.
no, he's not.
Of course not.
Duh. Pretty much, I mean, like, characters don't die. Main characters don't seem to die easily, and that way they can keep going away and coming back, right? And so far, like, I don't think any major characters like been completely removed.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, like, even characters that are minor characters, it's like they bother to name someone. They're coming back, like that captain of that ship.
Oh, I like him.
Yeah, the pirate guy. He's a character. He's real. He's not a major character, obviously, but, you know, he was a mid to minor character in the book, and yeah, you see him again.
When, like,
and it makes you, and the thing is, then later on, you see other characters who are similarly minor, and you have to assume, well, they're going to come back again, aren't they? And it's like, yeah, they probably will.
Are they going to be like in book 7, like go back to Bearlawn and stay at one of those inns again?
There's only so much map to cover.
Yeah.
They're going to have to, you know, they can go off the map a little bit, I assume, but there's only so much you can do.
But like so many of these little pieces like that, like things are mentioned offhand, and they seem to always come in at some point. Like if it mentions a place, you're like, I wonder what's going on over there. Well, something comes out of there soon enough.
Yeah, very much sooner than you expect, right? You know, usually the things that are off the edge of the map in most fantasy series,
like Arthur Hawkwing's legendary armies that went over the sea.
Yeah,
and never came back.
It's like they take a long time for those things to, like, you're got to be in a later book to get to the serious shit. It's like, no, it comes pretty quickly. It's like it escalates more rapidly than you would think for having so many pages and moving at a steady pace. Another thing that has a trope in this book that bothers me, because I was hoping this would be the one to break that trope, is I've talked about this before many times.
You just want to read the stupid Silmarillion. Those stories are terrible.
I've read Silmarillion, but Silmarillion is not exactly what I want. But there's a chapter early in the book where Moraine talks about the great king and the great
Arthur Hawkwing and all that.
No,
business.
not Arthur Hawkwing, but Manetheren.
Okay.
Right?
His blood, who's obviously in Rand.
Right.
Who's
She
the
talks
Dragon
about
Reborn.
basically these are peasants who live in a place called the Two Rivers, and the Two Rivers used to be Manetheren, and she talks about what Manetheren was, and it was basically the fucking awesomest kingdom with the baddest ass kings and the baddest ass queens.
You really want to read that story?
And the baddest ass heroes like Agamemnon and Achilles level of awesomeness, right? Like the baddest asses of the bravest and the goodest and the so good.
And that's what you want to read?
And I don't get to know. All I get is one chapter about those guys and then vague hints. It's like, why? I want to read the book where the badass king of Manetheren is the main character of the book.
You know,
and then the end of the book can be, because clearly Manetheren is not there anymore, right? The end of the book is the fall of Manetheren, and it has a bad ending, bad guy wins, the end. That's the book I want to read. Okay? And, like...
Get up in your fan fiction. Write the Wheel of Time, book 0.
There is a Wheel of Time, book 0. I have to figure out I have to figure out when it was published so I know when to read it.
God damn it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep reading them in order based on whatever like Amazon says. I'm not even going to...
Well, scroll down to see on this Wikipedia
No, because the names
page.
of all the books are spoilers for
No, they're not. The names of the books...
obvious Chekhov's guns. I mean, The Dragon Reborn, Chapter 3. Yeah. Well, they're talking about the dragon in Chapter 2 a lot.
So book 0 was New Spring, right, which tells you nothing, and it was published when?
Oh my God, there's 14 of these things?
Yeah, okay, so 2000, it was published in January 2004.
All right, I have a rule.
Scroll down.
I'm saying I have a rule that solves this.
Mm-hmm.
The rule that I've followed, because it worked with the Horatio books.
Scroll down.
I always read books in order of publication.
Yeah, all right, so after book 10, read book 0, then read 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 0, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's the order.
There you go.
Right.
Oh, it's only set 20 years before the events of the first novel.
Oh, so it's not going to tell me about the great king of Manetheren?
No, that was.
But it will tell me about Rand's dad, maybe Tam.
And
we'll figure out what Rand's, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, with his heron blade.
Yeah, where'd that heron blade?
And his Outlander wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Deals.
Huh. It's almost like just. It is really amazing how, and I keep saying this, unsurprising these books are. They follow a thread that is so directly blazed through a plot that is so obvious, and yet at the same time, you kind of just want to keep reading.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of keep poking around, like, all right, these guys are coming. I wonder what their deal is.
And it's the way the thing is. I think the reason it seems so obvious is that they tell you, the reader, something, right? And they tell it to you in such a way that you, being smart, a reader, right? You don't need to be that smart. You get that information and you know it. You're like, I know this fact now, but they wrote it in such a way that it leaves a little bit of doubt in your mind, even though it was so obviously just told to you. And then later, they tell you that same fact again in a way that 100% confirms that the thing you thought was right to begin with. They never do the opposite. Maybe they will later on, like at the end, who knows? So basically confirming the thing they hinted at being true is indeed true. Your 99% confidence level is actually 100% confidence level. So it makes it seem as if it was obvious when really it's like, no, you were supposed to be the first time they told you 100% sure.
Well, here's an example of how that all plays together, everything we said. So there's a point early on where Moraine, I think, is the one who explains to other people that a woman who has the ability to use magic, if she isn't found by the Aes Sedai and trained, she'll get these sicknesses, and then she'll be fine, and then
and
later
as soon as she
die.
says that, you're like, well, all these main character girls are magical.
Yep.
You just know it immediately. Like, I bet that, yeah, they're probably all magic. And then, yes, they are.
But
Absolutely.
then, well, later, Egwene is like, fuck yeah, I'll be a wizard. Fuck this nonsense Two Rivers bullshit.
Hell yeah.
I like her.
Yeah. Fuck
But
shit
then,
up.
meanwhile, the wisdom is like, I'm not no wizard. Fuck wizards. But then when she learns about the sickness thing, she's like, but I got sick as a kid. Oh, fuck. Fuck me. Oh, no. But then later, you get a flashback where Matt is like, yeah, Rand got really sick while we were traveling. It was kind of weird. Now, that came out of nowhere. And of course, Rand is the Dragon Reborn.
Of course.
As per the title of Book 3 and all the foreshadowing of Book 1.
But who do you think is a Dragon Reborn?
Rand.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's someone named. I mean, that's actually the best. The one thing another thing this book does that I love is chapter 1. It actually had the same chapter 1 that the Prince of Nothing has.
Yeah.
Right? It's that chapter 1 of not the main characters, another time, another place, something else. Right, and the chapter 1 of this book is Luz Theron, the real dragon. Right, definitely the dragon.
Yep, in his end insanity.
Right, he's called Luz Theron Kinslayer. Why? Well, because after he, basically
he murdered everyone he'd ever known.
So if you didn't, this is all in book 1.
If you didn't read book 1, what the fuck are you doing?
I don't know. So Luz Theron, he's the dragon, right? He's a ridiculously powerful magical dude, right? And he's the awesomest, most powerful dude. And the bad guy, Shaitan. Oh, I shouldn't say his name.
Yeah.
Right? Oh,
Whoosh.
Whoosh.
That'd have been book 2. Rand says his name
Balzamon.
that one time and shit goes down immediately.
Balzamon, the bad guy, Satan, right? The dark one.
Literally based on Satan. Like, go read.
Yeah, he's the bad guy. Right? He and all the other magical dudes and ladies of that time, of his age, they beat the bad guy. And in so doing so, imprisoned him in the Mountain of Doom, the stereotypical Mountain of Doom, right? Which is called Sheol Ghul or whatever. All the bad guys. It's Mount Doom. Come on.
It's Golgotha.
Yes, it's the bad place. It's always named Doom. They imprisoned him there, and in doing so, right, they sealed him up. They couldn't kill him. They sealed him up in this mountain, and that was like A+ move. But the bad guy's last move, his last move before being imprisoned,
the backstroke of the West in one sense.
yes, the backstroke of the West.
Well, they call it a backstroke like 4 times.
Sure. He breaks is the breaking of the world, right? In where he
they taint half of the gendered magic, which
the
I'll talk about at
magic
the
is
end.
gendered into the male half and the female half. So the bad guy poisons. He basically puts his icky darkness all over the man half of the magic.
So now,
all
if you touch the man half, to touch it, you have to go through all of his bad guy.
Yeah,
goop.
you have to there's like a film of nasty oil on this pool of man magic. The lady magic is fine. If you try to use the man magic, you have to sort of go through the icky muck that's floating on top. And it slowly drives you insane and bad and whatnot. So all these magic dudes, including Luz Theron Kinslayer, the awesome, dragon, go insane and ruin the world and destroy all the kingdoms and fuck everything up. And that's why he's Kinslayer, because he killed all of his kin in chapter 1.
And the whole book is all this precursor stuff of like the Angreal. Like, this is just something we could just make all the time in the old days.
So much mysterious precursor shit from the Age of Legends, which I think is even older than like Manetheren and Luz Theron and all that.
It's like in a Loch Lamora, like, what's that crystal thing?
I don't know. Same deal. There's some precursor stuff from people who are even better than the people we're dealing with
there's
now.
the place they mentioned, like, it's a cool place. Then Matt's like, why don't we go fucking loot it? And the guy's like, anyone who goes anywhere near there just suddenly dies. No one knows why.
Don't do that.
I feel like that place is going to come up at some point, though. Yeah. Every other place comes up at some point.
Yep.
There's also a lot of, like, Shadar Logoth seems to be almost as dangerous as the bad. And that's
it's a different bad.
Well, because what was that? That was the evil that man made themselves.
Yeah. There's also like the ways. Right?
Oh yeah.
With the black wind.
But it's when I think about the first book, like unlike other fantasy books, it's like they'll have like a few of those tropes and then their main story. This book is just everything. Just everything's crammed into there. The ways would be like a big deal in any other fantasy series. Here, they just go in there once.
Yeah,
and that's it. That's
it's
cool.
It's like they just fill the fantasy world with every single fantasy thing. It's like he's got the Heron Blade, right? And you think that's the Excalibur? It's like, yeah, it is. It is like the Excalibur. There's also Kalendor, which is the other. It's like the other Excalibur. It's like there's just magic shit, just coming the fuck out of everything. It's like every single place has some crazy shit going down.
Matt's dagger could destroy the world.
And and it's like every time you think that like, okay, we're just gonna resolve the stuff we have, they bring in more. It's like, new character, new kind of bad guy
like
you didn't know about before.
The end of book 1, they find the fucking horn and everything.
Yeah,
and then
that's kind of crazy, right? They talk so much about this horn,
the seal and everything, and then Green Man's dead. Found the horn. The seal's
Green
broken.
Man. Yeah, it's just like this is book 1, and there's like this legendary horn. The horn is actually way awesome. I love the horn.
It's like the horn in Ultima,
right? It's like it's a horn, so it's just like a brass horn. Like it's basically you blow in one end, it goes in a circle, and then
all the dead heroes of all past ages come to fight for you.
Right. So you blow the horn, and like the ghost of Arthur Hawkwing and like all the legends of legends just show up and fight for you, much like Lord of the Rings, where all the
there's some hints already.
Made a deal with the ghost to come and fight for him.
Yeah, that they'll
the bad
follow
guy.
whoever blows the horn, and there's also some debate.
In Lord of the Rings, they'll follow whoever has Narsil, the sword of the king. Right?
Of course, hitherto there's also some debate as to what the blowing the horn actually specifically does. Some of the characters
I
are
know
arguing
what the
about
horn
it.
does very specifically because you know what?
Oh.
Spoilers. That horn getting blown, yo. They don't.
In book 2 or book 3?
I'm not telling you, but the book does not hold back.
Because I'm a little pissed off in book 2. They just put it in the closet. Like, they just put it in, like, a normal closet. Like, good job, guys.
Well, they can't let anyone know, right? Remember, the people from Ilion...
But everyone else knew.
The great hunt from the horn has begun. There are people going all over the place looking for the horn.
The Amarillan knew. Igilmar knew. They knew. Moraine had it.
You can't blow it thinking of glory or salvation. You have to blow it thinking of...
well, you have
whatever.
to... Only salvation.
Right, only salvation, not glory. If you blow it thinking of glory, it's bad news.
I also noticed there's a few points where Moraine specifically hides information from Lan because it might make him feel bad.
Well, remember, as said, I always have to tell the truth.
Yep.
So she basically just avoids saying things. And like every time an Aes Sedai talks, you have to read it like you're fucking giving a wish to a genie to make, because like they can't lie. So they're telling the truth. You got to make sure like, okay, so is that actually true? Whereas the other people, you don't have to examine what they're saying nearly as much. But when Aes Sedai has dialogue, it's like, well, fuck me. I have to read this like half as fast just to make sure because I know they're not lying.
So I guess
they're probably weaseling or neglecting to say certain things.
So the fact that the magic is gendered and that is like a core part of this world doesn't bother me enough to make a deal about it. Like,
I don't think it's I don't think you can accuse these books of being sexist.
No, actually.
Because it passes the Bechdel test like all the time.
Not only does it pass the Bechdel test, but it hits the Bechdel test out of the park.
Like the ladies are like mad powerful and they take care of their own shit and they're just as main characters, if not more main characters than the dudes.
You know what it is? They're Ta'veren.
Yeah, and in fact, because the dude magic is poisoned, pretty much all the powerful people are ladies, and they're doing all the important shit.
But then not all the powerful ladies are wizards.
Like, there's very few awesome dudes, and they're kind of lame.
But it's definitely, there's definitely a feminist female empowerment like aspect of these books, which I like. And
I think it's just pretty, egalitarian. Like, there's strong and weak people of all genders and
but
shapes.
But it focuses a lot
fantasy races.
Like in the early chapters, on heavily balancing and making it clear that like the women's circle is actually just as powerful as the town council.
It's more powerful than the town council by a lot.
That's the impression you get.
Yes.
But I guess I'd say that it has strong female protagonists that are not strong female protagonists. They're
not proper noun strong female protagonists.
Yeah, they're just strong female protagonists.
They're just protagonists of every kind of shape and size.
Yeah.
The one thing though is that when it comes to bad guys, there seems to be
I am evil.
There seems to but there seems to be one female bad guy. At least one of the extremely powerful ones, right, that are legendary. There's like there's the token woman bad guy, and then the rest are all dudes.
I have a worrying prediction about that one because it's outside of the first book, and I can't necessarily, like, I don't want to spoil anything.
Yes, it's exactly what you think, because like I said before, if you're 90% sure about something, you should be 100% sure about it.
But
so
it worries me that is going to be that character's like ideal or core, and I worry it'll be a tiny bit problematic.
Anyway,
I'll mention it after the show.
Sure.
Because, you learn about that shit in like the middle of book 2.
Right. Anyway, but yeah, so, book 1 for, something that started out as peasants, right? At the end of book, you think it's going to take a long time before the epic shit happens.
No, they're like 7th, 8th level D&D characters by the end of that book.
But at the end of book 1, just somehow, despite having the steady pacing, they manage to get from, it's like when when the party gets split and they're trying to cross the world from west to east, it's like that part sort of feels like it's right. And then before you know it, it's like they're up fighting the big bad guy up at like the edge of the world where like the at the wall, the stereotypical like L5R wall where the bad guys are on the other side.
And they march through the gate.
And they go into the, the evil, waste of the world to find. And they find the magic horn and shit. And like the Green Man is there and everything. And it's like, whoa, they really got to the super powerful shit right away.
And then book 2 just keeps going up, just an upward slant.
It does not stop.
They're going to be 20th level by like the 4th book, I'd bet, maybe even 3rd.
It goes way faster than you think.
But what, epic? Once you get above 20th level,
it's epic level like so fast. I don't even know what's going to happen. I can't even imagine how epic it gets at book 5, 6, 7.
At the end, One Punch Man comes down.
I mean, it's basically One Punch Man versus One Punch Man already, as far as I can tell. But yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, what I can say is I'm digging these books enough to keep reading them.
I mean, if you're a nerd, you're going to like fantasy novel. And there's a reason you like fantasy novel is because of those tropes. It's like when you come across one that doesn't follow the tropes, that like it stands out as being unique and whatever. But how often do you see one that has all the tropes and it just executes them all solidly? And you have so much, it's like it just never runs out. It's like, oh, here's more of that thing that you like. We already know you like.
Yeah,
why would we mess with it? We know it's the thing you like. Here's more of it. Here, have some more perfectly serviceable, delicious steak. Yes. Oh, you want some more steak? Well, good. There are 20 more giant books just like it.
So like if Lord of the Rings is like the fancy, expensive restaurant that you just go to occasionally because it is like super good, and Prince of Nothing is like the weird place that you kind of like, but you don't want to eat there that often.
The foreign food with like,
the food's weird and makes you sick sometimes.
Sure.
And Forgotten Realms is McDonald's.
Yes.
Then these books are like Chipotle.
Yeah, this is a little better than Chipotle.
Chipotle with the sofritas.
Yeah. It's like it's not quite Cafe Maya, but it's like,
It's like you eat there a few times a week and it's totally serviceable.
Yeah, it's like, do I want to eat there? Yes, I would like to eat there. Would I say it is my favorite restaurant? No. Is it the restaurant I go to most? No, but I go there a lot.
Well, because there's a lot of words and a lot of pages.
Yeah.
I mean, how many lunches do you eat? You can only stray so far from your office in New York.
So I think the lesson to learn here is when you see something. I mean, I've learned this lesson already, which is why I made this decision, right? Is like, I keep hearing about this thing called Fist of the North Star. I should probably go and see what that is, huh? Yeah. So this Wheel of Time thing, that is a thing I know about as a nerd, but I've never read it or looked into it in any way whatsoever. Maybe you should. There's a nerdy thing you've heard of, right? Like I met some people like at PAX. It's like, yeah, I've never played any Castlevanias. It's like, you've heard of it, though? Yeah. Well, maybe you should check that the fuck out. So think about the nerdy things that are out there that are popular among nerds, that exist but haven't checked out, and make a list and check them all the fuck out in order. If you need help putting them in order, ask me, and I'll put them in order for you.
Like, I don't like Game of Thrones.
No,
I really don't like it.
I'm not into it.
I checked it out.
I did check it out.
And I know its deal.
Yeah.
Or like Evangelion. A lot of you hate Evangelion. You're wrong, but that's a fine opinion to have. But
some of you know Evangelion is a thing and you haven't checked it.
But at least
you gotta check it. Check it.
People keep talking about it. I mean, Evangelion's not as old as the Wheel of... Well, depending. Wheel of Time started being written, what, like 84?
90s, I think?
Came out in the 90s?
I don't know. But yeah, if you're a nerd, check all the nerd things. And because, they're probably good, and nerds will like them, like you.
And if they're bad, then you know they're bad.
You could have stopped middle way through this book if it was awful.
Well, we had to finish it for the book club, but I wouldn't have read the second book.
No.
And if something's really, really bad, and all the nerds like it, Well, now you can call him out on it because you read it. You know better.
Because isn't that the best thing when you say, all you nerds, what's that garbage you're all watching?
Yeah, like that and a Twitter discussion the other day about Code Geass where they're all like, yeah, that show is really shit, guys.
Yeah.
Guys.
Or just now when we said, yeah, all you people with Game of Thrones is garbage.
Yeah. It's not garbage, just I don't like it.
I'm not. It's basically like, because it's not really, it has dragons and stuff, but it's not fantasy novel. It's like,
but also
it just happens to be in a medieval-ish setting with
you know
some...
what it is? It's gritty, political, philosophical, deep-feeling fantasy for people who've never read The Prince of Nothing or anything like that.
Maybe.
Like, they've never encountered challenging fantasy before, so they see Game of Thrones, they're like, ooh, this is the adult stuff. None of that Kelvin
I feel about Game of Thrones
me.
the same way I feel about Star Trek, where it's actually a different thing. It's like Game of Thrones looks like fantasy, and Star Trek, looks like sci-fi because it's in space. But Star Trek is actually just like a soap opera, like Days of Our Lives. But it happens to be wearing spacesuits in a spaceship, so nerds like it.
I'd say the original series is more like actual sci-fi.
Well, yeah, it's more like Flash Gordon style, but yeah. But I mean, the ones that are more recent are the.
I see. I could.
Right. Whereas Game of Thrones, it's like, okay, it looks like a fantasy novel because they have swords and dragons and shit, but that's not what it is at all, right? It's like it's not. It's more like Sopranos. It just happens to have swords and dragons.
So I hate to say this, the writing, like the mechanical aspects of the writing, like the diction, the grammar, the word choice, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit better than a Rothfuss, but not that much better.
Which book?
Patrick Rothfuss.
No, I mean, which one are you saying is better, but not that much better?
I think Wheel of Time is a little bit better.
Oh, okay.
But not that much better.
I thought you might have spent some on Game of Thrones.
I think they're both written at about the same level of like execution in terms of writing.
Yeah, it's serviceable.
The content is different.
It gets it done. It's good.
Yeah,
it's like,
it's
if
a step above like
if
Hunger
I had to
Games.
grade that aspect, I'd be like B minus.
Yeah, like one full step above Hunger Games, and even then, Hunger Games.
It's
writing,
definitely more than better than Hunger Games.
Yeah, I said one full step. There aren't that many steps.
Right.
But even then, like that kind of writing was serviceable because the story was okay.
The thing it really lacks is, there's only a few like sayings that you can cling to.
Yeah, we quote The Prince of Nothing.
Whereas
on a daily
if you're doing
basis.
Prince of Nothing, you can like, trackless step, shortest path.
Yep.
Right? Whereas in Wheel of Time, it's like, what am I
All the glitters is like everything. So you quote Lord of the Rings, you quote Prince of Nothing. You don't quote Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
You don't quote The Wheel of Time.
No, there's not too much quoting to be done.
And honestly, like it doesn't come up that often. But when there is prose and poetry and prophecy in The Wheel of Time,
it's
not great.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of songs people sing.
They
keep going on and on about how in every town they're all singing the same songs with different words and different names.
So something horrible happened.
And when I read those lyrics to some of the songs, I can't put them to a tune at all.
I can put them to tunes because of the diction. Like one of the songs they keep singing is do 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 do. That song, you know that song?
Okay.
It's that song over. It's all folk songs, like I guess just from music theory, like I picked those things out, but you're better off not being able to put them to tunes, like for real.
Yeah.
At least the Lord of the Rings, like you read those books and those songs are memorable and good.
It's also kind of annoying sometimes when they repeat things like that. It's like, yes, we know that in every town they sing the same songs with different lyrics and the songs go by different names. You don't need to keep saying that.
We get it.
Every
you're
single,
country kids.
Every inn that you go to,
you're
we don't
country
need to.
kids and you're seeing the wide world for the first time. And these people seem just like
even,
us.
Even in book 3, they went to an inn and there was a lady singing in the inn and they pointed out like, oh, it was a song he knew, but it went by a different name. I don't know what song it was, but even in book 3, they're still going on about this.
The wind runs through the willows.
Oh, that's the one. Okay.
That one, yeah.
I think that's the number 1 song.
Yeah, there's a few more that
anyway.
don't dig deep down there.
I'm not digging anywhere in those territories. All right, I think that's the wheels of time to go round and round in the willows.
God, I will pick a book club book after my trip because I'm pretty much going to keep reading The Wheel of Time during my trip. So, also, I got to think about what book I want to pick. I got a few ideas, but I want to consider. I want to see if maybe there's a hot new book I'm ignoring instead of going to something old.
Try to have a reason for picking like I did.
Oh, I always have a reason, like a very specific reason for everything I pick.
I like that one. That was a pretty cover.
A cover could convince me if it was good enough.
Okay.
This This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geek Nights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geek Nights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
It's America's game. Ladies and gentlemen, here are the stars of our show.
DeBella's truck. It's just a giant Winnebago, and you pull it up outside of events and do the DeBella's thing.
There is a submarine sandwich Italian.
Do they make like
sub.
10 subs a minute?
I don't know
Maybe
how many
more?
they make, but sometimes they're near my work, and I haven't even bothered to go try them out.
Because way back when I worked at that stupid DeBella's.
They do not have enough people in a line outside of them if they made 10 subs a minute, they would have no people outside.
I mean, I could make an entire sub in about 30 seconds
All right,
if the customer
you
knew what
can
they
train
wanted.
everybody.
Yeah.
And I'll count the money.
Now, we got to get the guy who trained me.
The master, the Pai Mei of subs.
The book club book is,
You
we're done
stole your
now.
eyeball.
I got to pick a new book club book, which is tough because I'm pretty much...
Pick something that you're going to read in Singapore.
But I'm going to read the next Wheel of Time books.
Oops.
Maybe I'll just do book 2 of the Wheel of Time.
I already
We're
read
reading
that. Let's not do that.
Maybe I'll pick the next R. Scott Bakker book because there's a date now, supposedly.
All right, well, how good. We're going to do this book club in 2025.
Yeah, we'll see when the date is. There's no
right.
pre-order yet on Amazon.
So Wheel of Time, I chose this book on the basis that the Wheel of Time is one of those ridiculously famous fantasy series, just like Lord of the Rings and the Games of Thrones.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you go to an anime con and you're like, Cowboy Bebop, what's that? And all the other people are like, what? You've never seen Cowboy Bebop?
There are like certain, there's like sci-fi series like, Foundation and what's another good one? The Culture series.
I was about to
right?
say the
Yeah.
Culture series.
They're like,
Even that's more recent.
In the fantasy sci-fi nerd section of the bookstore, there.
It's probably Thursday, September 17th, 2015. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. I might be in Singapore or Australia or something, but we recorded a bunch of shows ahead of time, and tonight we're talking about, on the Geek Nights Book Club, the first book of The Wheel of Time.
It is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan.
Fantasy book, the novel, part 1.
Part 1.
Let's do this. But first, things of the day.
We can't do news recording a show in the past because who knows what's happened today. We don't know because we're in the past.
But it's the lounge, so we can talk about anything. Commentary, ideas.
Anyway, so my thing of the day is this guy longboarding down a really steep road, which isn't really that exciting, except for the fact that I think this is a world record speed of longboarding.
He's going way fast.
If not world record, it doesn't really freaking matter. He's going like 70 miles an hour with no helmet, on a longboard, with no brakes, down a road. Yeah, the road is smooth, but I mean, one rock in the road, and he could boom, bump, tumble, tree, dead. And that does not happen, which makes this video awesome. The coolest thing, I think, is like he's got the stance practiced for when he's going straight. It's like he's got this perfect balance going on, and he's also got these gauntlet kind of gloves on his hands. I think he has discs of metal or some kind of material so that when he has to make a sharp turn, he can lean and actually put his hand on the ground and to stabilize himself without, if he had a glove on, that wouldn't even suffice, right? He needs this he's going so
like
fast.
even like hockey gloves, you just wear right through them.
Sure. So there you go.
So this is a video that is about 10 minutes worth of just footage, some natural, some staged or recreated, just because, old-timey equipment, of the New York City subway in 1949.
They shot this with film cameras, like black and white film spinning through a loop, right?
What's amazing is that the only things that are different between then and today, 2015, are, 1, the accents, 2, the conductors.
You can still hear those accents in some parts of the city.
Not quite as as New York as this. They're kind of surprising.
I want-
The doors are deadly.
Yeah, they should be more deadly.
Yep, and there's tokens.
Tokens. You never saw the tokens.
No, I never used a
You
token.
ever used the token to go through a toll?
No.
Yeah.
On the Garden State Park where I'd throw change into the buckets.
No, the token. You would go to what you would do is you would either, if you went through like the toll every day because you were commuting, you would buy and have them mail you the tokens like in rolls. Like you would get quarters in a roll, you get tokens in a roll, and you'd pay like a fee monthly or whatever. Or you would drive up to the toll booth and you would buy tokens. And then if you buy like a roll of tokens for like $20 or whatever, and then every time you got to a toll, you throw in one token into the thing. And then it would just, you go through the toll.
Yep. But the amazing thing isn't just that this video is, cool, but if you click on this video, you're going to get a bunch of recommended videos on YouTube.
There are certain book series that are just there. They're perennial. They're always, they're a thing. And being a nerd, I feel like I should, know at least some about all of these things because they're so important nerderies. But Wheel of Time, while it's had many RPGs made out of it and things of that nature, it hasn't had TV series or movies or anything like that to bring it into the greater pop culture. It's like, I think most people don't know what the hell this is at all. But nerds, you see those books and it's like, if you haven't read it, you at least know that is one of the big fantasy novel series.
So I knew about them because, of all things, there was, when I was a kid, there was the Museum Replicas magazine where you could or catalog, where you could order swords. And I didn't have money, luckily, so I never bought any. But the best sword they had was called the Heron Blade.
Ooh.
And it talked about, this
not as good as the Heron Spear. What's up with herons and weapons in fantasy series?
I would suspect that the Heron Spear was perhaps inspired by the Heron Blade.
Oh, you think so?
I do think so.
Maybe.
The problem, the main reason I'm kind of invested in these books now, The Wheel of Time, and why I think it was a good book club choice for you to pick, is that...
You didn't think that when I picked it originally.
No, I didn't, because
At least you admit that.
I was not enthusiastic about reading however many million pages that book is.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I discovered these books because I spent a lot of time in the nerd section of the Borders and the Barnes and Nobles in my day, when I was younger, before Amazon existed. Especially,
I'd see them.
And I'd see them.
And it is pretty much nothing but similar amazing footage of old and new Subway stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing a lot of Subway stuff recently because New York actually, just recently, for the first time in pretty much all modern history, actually expanded the subway system and added a new stop.
Whoa. Can you go there yet?
We can go on in a few days. We can ride there.
Yeah, I saw the map in the subway car had already updated with the stop. I didn't know if the train was going there yet because I was at I was at Times Square and the 7 train is, still said last stop. So I'm like,
I'm pretty sure. But in Grand Central, the sign says the name of Hudson Yards now.
Uh-oh.
It says the Hudson Yards bound 7.
Just in time to go to the New York Comic Con in a few weeks.
That I'm not going to go to.
Nope.
They didn't want my panel.
Oh, well.
Yep. New York Comic Con. A con so big and amazing that despite the fact that I can literally take the subway to it for free next to my house.
I would go if, a few years ago we went just to see, screenings of films and things. That
we went to see, Makoto Shinkai.
Right. But they aren't having that now, so.
No.
As far as I know.
It's literally, it's the things I hate about cons. It's a giant expo hall, a place with no food to eat, and a huge line.
Maybe the Hudson Yard stop will create food to eat. Maybe we should open up a foodery near there, as the Bellas, perhaps.
You know what you need?
We can buy out some old auto shop that's over there.
Fuck that!
Smash
you know what
it
you
down,
need?
Build a
You need
DeBellas.
to take the DeBellas formula and make the